Good morning and welcome to Still in the Fight. Hey, listen, if you wake up every morning fighting on behalf of your people to have a great place to work and fighting on behalf of your customers to have a great place to shop, and if you're in that fight, setting standards, solving problems, coaching your people, and pushing to get just a little bit better every single day, well, you know what? We're right there with you because we are retailers also. We're just like you. We're still learning. We're still leading. We're still working hard. This is Still in the Fight retail leadership lessons from the front lines. In the studio today, we have Mike Costello, CEO for Costello's Ace Hardware. We have Rob Filer, Senior Vice President of Sales for Costello's Ace Hardware, and myself, Art Friedman, a business coach for Costello's Ace Hardware. And our topic today is the word yes. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey guys, how you doing?
Morning.
Good morning.
Good
Hello.
morning.
Hello. Hello,
I'm going to
everyone.
kick this off today with a little story. So, this goes back a few years when I used to work the counter at our own hardware store. And customer comes in and they're looking for a small trash bag, like a 3-gallon trash bag, 3-gallon size. And, I'm going, 3 gallons, man. Who buys a 3-gallon size trash bag? And, I know a 13-gallon is like for a small kitchen. And I'm going, man, no. I said, we don't carry them. Uh, do you have some time? We'll go look and see if we can order it. They said, nah. And they left. And a young lady comes up and she works in our housewares department. And she says, well, what were they looking for? And I go, I know this isn't going to be good. I go, they were looking for a 3-gallon size trash bag. And she goes, we carry those. And I go, what? And she said, we carry those. Those are for a small compactor. And it was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And I remember it so clearly because that's the moment that it came to me that you can't just assume you know everything that's inside of a hardware store, and you can't say no without checking with everybody else in the store. And at that point in time, we developed this saying. It's just simple, and it goes like this. It goes, takes two to say no, but only one to say yes. And from that moment forward, we started checking with everybody in the store before we started saying no to a customer. Make sense?
Makes sense.
And
Why?
dollars.
Why did? Well, let's get into the psychology of this. Why did you say no, Art?
Well, I said no because I thought I knew everything we carried in the store.
Hmm. We can go deeper on that. Why did you think you knew everything that you had in the store?
That's way too deep for me. But, a lot of people that come, that live in the store and they work there every day, they think they know everything that's there. Nobody knows how everything can be used in a store. Even the best product people in the world probably don't know that. But how many times do we have people in our stores that say no to a customer only to find out a minute, an hour, a day later, the correct answer was yes, and they just didn't know it?
Yeah. I think there's different reasons why people say no, right? And we all have stories. And not to get into anything negative, but saying yes sometimes is scary for people. They They say no because they think they're doing the right thing. They say no because they're more task oriented. They say no because they don't know. They say no because they don't want to explore and dig deeper or solve that problem.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it.
It's easy too,
Mike, you've had some experiences with this.
With saying no,
With saying yes.
I never said no.
Mike never says no.
Never.
Mike
Well,
digs.
yes is the most powerful word in business, and it really is the most powerful word in life. And there's Rob, you're right. There's a lot of reasons why yes, the word yes can be scary. We don't. Yeah, saying yes implies that you have the answer, but it doesn't mean that. It just means you're willing to go somewhere or willing to uh, do more, dig deeper, find out what that answer is. And yeah, I mean, I would say that probably any successful business is based on saying yes to their customers, right? I think it's that simple.
Yeah. I mean, so how do you get people trained to say yes? I, how do you get them knowing that they're not, listen, if it's not illegal and it's not immoral and you're just trying to solve the problem for the customer, how do you get them to feel empowered to say yes? Or I don't want to, I can't do that because we're not, I was told not to go below that margin level, or
Yeah.
I think I shouldn't go below that margin, or, well, I can't really have somebody leave the store now to deliver that for you. There's so much to it, to um, not feeling empowered to saying yes.
I think it's a mindset, man. It's like if a customer comes into our stores and we can't help them, who can? I mean, I don't even know who can. I mean,
Well,
what are you
our
going to do? Send
competition
them?
can.
What's
We're
that?
going to give somebody else a shot. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. It's either gonna be the internet or it's gonna be Home Depot or Lowe's or somebody, but, I mean, I can't even imagine sending somebody out of a store that comes in with a problem and we don't have the ability to be able to solve that problem. I mean, I just don't even know where you send them. But, a lot of times we have employees that say no because in their mind, they would never do it. I'll give you an example. Somebody comes in and wants a pallet of concrete, right? And they want it delivered someplace. And the first thing you're going to get from a typical employee is, well, we can't do that. And it's like, well, of course we can. Of course we can. We can do it. Now, I'm not saying we want to do it for free, and I think that we can put a price on it. But, to me, it's far better to say yes and put a price on the word yes, and then let the customer decide whether they want it or not, rather than an employee making a decision for a customer. Because I think we have a lot of that too.
Yeah. So Art, what you're talking about having inspiring people to be creative, right?
Yeah.
Creativity and saying yes. And the number one, the number one cultural component of that is making sure that when you allow somebody and inspire somebody to go out there and be creative, that they don't get in trouble
Oh
when they
yeah.
make when they make a mistake, because as soon as you tell somebody to use their judgment, and then you give them some poor feedback or have a bad reaction to that, or that judgment that they took on, the thing that they took into their own hands. As soon as you do that, you shut them down in the
Absolutely.
future. So it's not just about what you say; it's what you do when when people who are empowered. And this is all about empowerment, right?
Yeah.
Um, you gotta let them be empowered. You gotta let them use judgment, and then when things go off the rails, because they always will.
Yeah.
By the way, we've all made mistakes saying yes. I've made tons, uh, and or gotten myself into something that just didn't work out or cost the company a lot.
Yeah.
But when that happens, all right, you got to have the mindset that we're going to learn from it, and it's not going to keep us from saying yes in the future.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the most impactful thing a customer can feel is that you're going out of your way to say yes,
Absolutely.
or you're looking to solve their problem. It's like you have to have built into the process and policy the ability to say yes to when something is maybe a little bit out of bounds,
Sure.
right? Because again, people go back to that policy. Uh, we don't have good process. We don't have good policy. We build more process. We build more policy. And then people hold on to that policy like it's the only thing that matters. The only thing that matters is how the customer feels in that interaction. Um, Sometimes saying yes has nothing to do with making a sale. Mike, you tell a story all the time about, how your dad would send somebody down the street for a better solution.
Yeah,
That
well,
that was
that's
saying yes to solve their problem. It wasn't saying no, right?
no, I think that's ultimately when, this comes right down to, what you want to be as a person, right? You want to be the type of person that has solutions, has answers, can figure things out, has meaning to other people. I mean, I hate to get so deep about it, but that's simply it. Some people enjoy being that gatekeeper, that no person. I just don't think those people belong in a retail environment, right? Um, you said, why do people say no? A lot of our people say no because they think they're protecting the company by saying no. Say no on a return. Well, that
Yeah.
customer used that item. We're not going to get screwed over by a customer that used something and then wants to return it, or misused something and broke it, or give me another example of protecting a company asset. I mean, or protecting the company.
Taking a coupon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah.
taking the coupon because it
We can't
expired.
take that
Yeah.
coupon. You already used the coupon.
And these things, again, there's an associate or an employee or a manager thinking that they're doing a good thing here, right? And if they're not kind of coached otherwise, then lose the long time value of customers.
Yeah. There's two things that come to mind for me when you're talking about that. One is you just got to figure out a way to slow down the no, right? Just slow it down, man. Because a lot of times somebody says, "Well, do you?" or "Can you?" And then the first, it's like they don't even get done talking, and somebody's saying, "No, we don't do that," or "We know we
Mm.
can't do that." It's just like, and if we could eliminate the word no, if we could just eliminate it, man, I can't even imagine how much our sales would increase by doing that. But I think that a lot of times, it's like this saying, you got to be careful who you give the power to, right? Because when you give the power to say no to somebody that doesn't understand the values of the company, man, they make a lot of bad decisions on behalf of the company. They think they're doing the right thing, but through training or whatever reason, they just don't understand even something as simple as maybe the lifetime value of a customer, right? Customer comes in, they buy a hammer, they hit the concrete instead of a nail, they bring the hammer back, they go, "Can I get a return on this?" And the person looks at them like they're an alien and goes, "We didn't break the hammer, why should we give you our money back?" And,
Yeah.
the only thing that happens when we do that is bad things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think slow it down is some great advice. Slow it down with some questions. Slow it down with some understanding. Slow it down with a little inquiry. Slow it down by talking to somebody else in the store, teammate,
Yeah.
about how to handle a situation. Uh, we all have great stories of this, right? But what I like, one of our great sales leaders, Mike Ventrudo, he's got a saying, nobody walks,
Yeah. Yeah, I
right?
like that.
So he's looking for a solution, right? And again, it's not salesy. He's looking for a solution. He's looking to solve a problem. So that nobody walks mentality will lead you to deeper conversations with a customer.
Yeah. But you gotta wanna do that, right? You gotta like to help people,
Yeah.
and I think Mike said in the beginning, maybe it was you, Rob, that, not everybody likes to help people.
Yeah.
Not everybody's fit to be in retail. And, for that reason and maybe a lot of others, one of the things I like is giving people a lifeboat, giving them a number, and I'm not even sure I care that much about what the number is, but give them a number, $20, $10, whatever the number is, and let them make decisions, and like you talk about, if they make a mistake, so be it. So be it. Then we
Yeah.
coach them, and hopefully we don't make it again, but we do. It's all about empowerment.
Yeah,
It's Mike, you made the point. Talk about the personality of somebody and their willingness to want to serve and to help and
Yeah.
support, right?
well, I don't know anything out, any other way. So I don't know how to, that's just, if you want, I think it comes down to legacy. How do you want to be known? How do you want to be perceived by others? Um, and if you want to be useful or helpful, I guess if I brought it right down to my own father, right, it was like he he had that he made that association with saying no to being useless. Like once you say no to somebody, they have no use for you. and he just didn't want to be useless, and maybe that was a big, maybe that was his big motivator. It
Yeah.
wasn't being helpful. It was not being irrelevant, you know?
Yeah. Did you guys remember the story about the lady who we wouldn't repair her screens?
No, tell me, I don't remember.
So I'm overhearing a conversation on the phone in the office one day, and I could tell the person was maybe elderly, and she was perplexed that we wouldn't do the screens for her. So I went to her house, and make a long story short, I said, "Well, what happened when you walked in with the screens?" She said, "I didn't walk in with the screens. I walked in with the coupon." And they didn't know what to do. They wouldn't repair my screens. I said, "Where are the screens? They're in the windows." Take the screens out of her windows, bring them back to the store, work with the
Yeah,
team. Please repair these, bring them back, install them for the woman. I mean, she
yeah.
was 90 years old. I don't know how she even got to the store, but she went there with the coupon, wouldn't and not the screens. And the associate didn't know what to do. Can't really blame them. It was a very unique situation, but didn't take it to the next level. Didn't find a way to say
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Just said, "I don't know what to do. Sorry, ma'am.
No.
We need the screen to do anything."
That's also where, again, takes two to say no, but only one to say yes. I mean, if an employee feels like they need to say no to something like that, Rob, I mean, they should be checking with a leader in the store, and the question is simply, how do we make this happen for this customer? And
Yeah.
I think that if we're willing to take the time to do that, I think that good things come out of that conversation. And I don't think that our leaders in the company are going to say, no, we're not going to go get the screens. I think leaders in the company at the end of the day are not even going to know that that situation occurred in many cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So when it comes to culture, I think both yes cultures and no cultures are um, they're contagious. There's a lot of influence. So you can build a yes culture um, just as easily as you can lose it. With just a few people driving the conversations and driving the action. So it's really important for leadership to keep a keen eye on that whole aspect of doing for others. And Art, you mentioned, it takes two to say no. Uh, that's really important, not just because sometimes it turns a no into a yes, because that's cool, right? Like
Mhm.
somebody thinks it's a no, but actually, that item is in stock, or we do stock that. That's just a weird name that the customer used, or you know, we can figure out an online, they can order it online, and we can deliver it. Like there's so many ways that you can turn a no into a yes. But what I think is equally, and maybe even more powerful, is the fact that, you know, somebody saying they don't know or they think it's a no, and then taking that time to actually go and verify. It means more, it means a lot to the customer. It means that we're willing to do something that most others are not. Because I would tell you that most retailers do not execute a "it takes two to say no" policy. Oh,
Right.
I hate that word policy. Sorry.
Yeah.
To execute a "it takes two to say no" culture. Um, and when you do that, customers go, wow, even if it is a no, wow, they went the extra mile. Like somebody actually checked just to see, and it has meaning, and even if it didn't help them out at the time.
Yeah. I would tell you, Mike, that every staff member that has worked out on the floor for any period of time during their career, if you say to them, "Have you ever said no?" only to find out a little bit later that the correct answer was yes and you just didn't know it, every one of them would say, "Oh, yeah, absolutely."
Of course.
And some of them would say, "Oh my god, that's happened a lot." And, because you don't know what you don't know, but it's a mentality, and it is a culture, and I've never really thought about it that way, I guess, but it certainly is a culture as well. And
Yeah.
ingraining that in your people, man, that's not easy.
It's certainly a culture. And as the business gets more complex, what happens? We build more boxes, we build more process because we have to handle different types of business. We have We have to handle the .com. It becomes more complex than it maybe was back in the day.
Yeah.
And so, but we can't lose that culture. I sent around a Simon Sinek quote. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but great cultures are built when companies understand how they behave when they're at their very best. Right? We all know stories of what happens when we're at our best. That is the culture that we want to have emanate, that we want to have repeated. And those are what define the values that are important to the company.
Man, I mean, when we're at our best, if you think about it, if you guys think about every time you go and visit a store, right, and you're spending a minute, 5 minutes, or whatever it is with a customer in the store, and the ability to be able to either make sure they get what they need or get a special order or have them go to .com or whatever it is, if you're willing to take that time, then, I mean, really good things can happen, right? But why are we not willing to take that time? In other words, we hire people to take care of customers, and then they don't take care of a customer, they say no, and it's like, I just struggle with that.
Listen, Art, I think it happens thousands of times a day. I don't think it's not happening. It is
Yeah.
happening. It's happening. What happens is that when it happens 999 times, the one time it doesn't happen, those are the ones that we remember, right? And again, you want it to happen 1,000 out of 1,000. So I think it happens every day. We probably should raise those situations up the flagpole a little bit more and talk about those instances where people found a way to delight or wow a customer by saying yes.
Yeah.
And they need to feel that. They need to feel that, how powerful that is. Mike, to your point earlier, I think some people get really excited about that. They like that feeling when they help a customer and they go outside the normal box and they find a way to say yes. I think some people, it doesn't excite them. And so maybe a customer facing position isn't probably the right place for them, whether it's in retail or not. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it can listen, there's a burden to it, right? Trying to figure out a yes, how to say yes. Saying yes is not good enough. Turning that yes into an action is not always easy. It could be difficult. It's not just creative. It could take a lot of time, maybe time that we don't have, maybe time we don't have at the time. It's not so cut and dry. Like, once we say yes, the solution just doesn't magically appear. If it did, then we would, we'd never say no. So,
Yeah.
there is a lot to it, and I think a lot of it is inspiring our people. It's positive reinforcement for those. It's living by the stories of those who said yes. You know, the the associate that chased the customer out, out into the parking lot, um, that was leaving with nothing, to find out, why they were leaving with nothing, only to find out that the item they thought we didn't have, we did have, or there was a solution. So we got to live, I think, by and try and reinforce positively reinforce with the stories of excellence.
Yeah.
There's like sorry, Art, there's like a
No, go ahead.
juxtaposition here though, right? Have you guys read anything about what great leaders do? Great leaders in business, titans of business,
No.
CEOs, they say no. They say no. They say no to distractions. They say no to other business opportunities. They say no to people scraping them for something. They stay focused. Like, this is like the other end of the spectrum.
Not really.
On the floor with your customers, you want to say yes,
Yeah.
right?
It's not really the juxtaposition. That's looking at all the components of running a business, when in fact the most important thing is what happens on the front lines of a business. So it's where customers are interacting. By the way, it's okay to say no to each other or vendors or any other stakeholder, when we need to be spending that time or that energy or that focus on our customer. It always will be, and that's the leadership burden right there,
Yeah.
is to know. And I think the way that would work inside a store would just be, for a leader just saying no to the task and yes to the customer and to the customer interaction, to the,
There you
you know.
go. There you go.
Yeah, and what that reminds me of, and this is going to be in a deeper conversation later on, but um, one of Mike's uh, philosophies or stories always deals with uh, there's never a project that we're doing in our stores that is more important than the project that the customer's doing. And I think the message to me is crystal clear.
How
And
profound.
it's profound. It's profound, and I've never forgot it, and it was years and years ago when I first heard you say that, and it was probably at some kind of an onboarding session, I really don't remember, but, I think that that message, I think, is important, and I think that when you're thinking about the values of the company, I think that that pretty much says it all, that the priority is the customer, and we've gotta figure out a way to say yes to our customers, but I will add one thing, and that's that if we do say no, and we have to say no because, and then you fill in the blank, we should be keeping track of those no's. I mean, if people are coming in the store and they're asking for a product and we're saying no, that should be it should be going to the buying staff or category management or somebody that can deal with it because the customers are going to tell us where we can improve. And all we need to do is listen to them in the cases of when we do say no because we just don't stock it or whatever.
Yeah. Totally
Yeah.
agree. It's not just product. It could be anything. It could be the way
Yeah.
we do things. No, no is powerful at times. Like we
Yeah.
know no is powerful in sales as long as we follow it up with the right questions and understand why. So, yeah, it's a great point, Art.
Well, we're coming to the close of this, and I mean, I get it. This conversation could go on for a long time, based upon the importance of it. But let's go around the room and and talk a little bit about what you think a retailer could do as an action step. In other words, they sat here, they listened to us for 27 minutes. They're going to go back into their world, whatever world they came out of, to listen to the podcast, and what can they do?
I'll
Yeah.
start.
Go ahead, Mike.
Rob said a word before. It's probably my least favorite word in business, and the word is policy. I've never heard the word policy. You hardly ever hear the word policy used in a positive fashion.
Yeah.
It's always when somebody's kind of looking for something to um, backstop their no. It's our policy not to do this. It's our policy not to do that, or to not allow this. I think that if you're in a business, and in business, when it comes to your customer, the only policy you should have is helping customers, is assisting customers, is delighting customers. It doesn't mean that we're never going to say no, but we never use the word policy when we're going to put it against a no. As a matter of fact, I'm still not even sure that we have a policy in our store. Now, I've heard people say it before. And so if you're looking for my takeaway, it's take that word policy and really make an example of it. How are we going to use the word policy, and how are we not? And have the policy that our policy is to take care of our customers.
Yeah.
And I think it's powerful when you use it in that fashion. It doesn't mean as much if you just shoot people down when they're using the word. You really got to kind of reinforce what we're here for, and what helps this business, be sustainable and be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff, Mike.
Good.
I would say don't say no. Sounds silly, right? Um, it doesn't take two to say no. It takes one to say yes. And I would reinforce that very simple thought process that, you know, we're here to say yes. We're here to find solutions. And trumpet up those situations where people will find ways to delight the customer and use those examples, do something to celebrate that discussion. I, I believe that if you talk to operators around the country, very few will hear the phrase, it takes two to say no, right? So talk about that. Eliminate the word no. I just hate the word. Our
Yeah.
job is to say yes. I accentuate the positive of it. Like no is not an option unless it's illegal or immoral, right?
Nobody
That's
walks.
good. Yeah. Yeah, listen, that's good, Rob. And for me, I think it's all about slowing down the no. I mean, again, if you could eliminate it from the vocabulary, you'd be a better retailer, you'd be doing more business. But at the end of the day, that's just not reasonable. But, and then the other thing, at least for me, is that when you've got staff members that are saying no to a customer, as a store manager, you got to know why they're saying no. You just got to know. You got to be asking and then helping the customer because again, everybody that's worked out on the floor has said no to a customer only to find out a minute, an hour, a day later, the correct answer was yes, and they just didn't know it.
Yeah. Good
At
stuff.
the end of the day, if it becomes part of the culture, then your business probably is increasing. And if it's not part of your culture and part of your culture is okay to say no, then that's costing you a lot of money, a lot of money. But listen, you guys, thank you very much for your time today. And everybody that's out there listening, hopefully you got at least one nugget out of today and you can go out and make your business a little bit better because you're still in the fight just like we are. Have a great day, guys.
See ya.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I will.